Biggly Piggly Wiggly on Spring Street has served 3 generations of shoppers since 1955 as the largest locally owned independent grocery store in the area. The Joseph family owners grew up here, so you know they're invested in the community. They provide the biggest variety of choice meats, the freshest produce, an in-house deli bakery, great wine selection, and more of your favorite brands. Every purchase gives you gasoline points so you can save at our pumps. Order online for pickup at bigglypigglywiggly.com. Biggly Piggly Wiggly on Spring Street. No one beats the pig.
The opinions expressed on Scoop Squad Truth Pod are those of the hosts and the guests and not those of WVRC Media. The Scoop Squad Truth Pod, copyright 2024. Scoop Squad Truth Squad, LLC.
Hello, Charleston, West Virginia. This is the Scoop Squad Truth Pod. I'm your host, Ashley Switzer. I'm here with my co-host, Ron Hughes. Hey, Ron.
Hey, Ashley, how are you doing?
I'm tired.
You look tired.
I'm not going to lie. Do I look tired?
You don't look bad, but you do look tired, like you've been
Thank
working
you,
hard all
sir.
day and being a parent and a grandparent.
You know what? I just came from a basketball game. You work all day. I have to get to work at 6:30. Left work at 2:45. Came home, had my grandson, hopped in the shower, hit the road to a John Adams basketball game, and then came straight down here. It's the first time I sat down all day was at the basketball game. I almost fell asleep.
Well, that's the life of...
It's the life of a mama.
Yeah. And
I have another mama in here.
You'll miss it later.
Mom sleep. It's like regular sleep without the sleep.
This is our regular guest.
I love that. Mom sleep. It's like regular sleep without the actual sleep.
Right.
That was Elisa Payne, and she is in the studio with us tonight. And Elisa is not only one of our top contributors, but she's also a sponsor. She
loved the show so much, she became a sponsor.
And Elisa, I have to ask you, did you get in the magic?
Oh my gosh,
makeup
not
line?
yet.
Okay.
Honestly, they're coming, and I swear I'll let you know as soon as they are, so you can blast it all over.
I'm going to
Facebook.
blast it all over Facebook.
I need to double that order. I'm getting kind of frightened.
I'm going to do another live video and show everybody how it works. It's the most amazing thing. Derrick, if you have not gotten your wife a magic, I made up my own term for it, but it's a washcloth. It's a makeup remover, and it also kind of doubles as an exfoliant. Like, your wife is going to love it, and she'll never have to buy the disposable makeup wipe removers again.
Oh, well, this actually sounds fabulous.
And it is fabulous.
This can be found at the Eggplant if you're chomping at the bit to find out where you can find it.
I just
on Bridge Road.
I just shouted out one of our. Why don't you talk about the rest of our sponsors real quick?
Well, also want to thank Biggly Piggly Wiggly over on Spring Street. This is like the largest family-owned grocery store in the area.
And you can get gas points.
Back in the 1950s.
Did you know you can get gas points over there too?
Right.
Just like
a great gas station, car wash, but the grocery store is amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Also, Jody's Mobile Services.
Mm-hmm.
You will find that if you have big rigs, heavy trucks, equipment, that's the place to call to, and you can look them up on Facebook.
Well, and Jody's also Jody Pastori. Pastori is also running for Lincoln County Commission.
Lincoln County Commissioner. Yep. He's been involved with.
He won't have billboards though, so don't look for those.
No, his opponent somehow cornered the market on all those after they were promised to Jody. But that's a different story.
That's okay.
But his mobile services division, he owns several businesses, but that's the place to go for getting your heavy equipment washed or buildings steam cleaned. Also, Chris Walters, who's running for county commission. Chris Walters at
Integrity Insurance
on 16 Capitol Street. IIGWV.com, your place for insurance for business, home, auto, health,
and
life,
pets.
And pet insurance. Believe it or not, if your pet gets sick and you have this, covers just like your kids or your family health insurance. Also, T-Graphics on the west side.
Hey, Claudette Hudson, yep.
Over on Buchanan Street, great place for work apparel.
Political. Hey, Derrick, if you need
apparel,
anything printed,
signs,
some T-shirts or campaigns. We have Derrick. I'm referring to him like I've known him all
who's
my
Derrick?
life. I know.
Derrick Evans, who is running for Congress in the first district. He's right here.
He is a former.
You may have seen him on TV.
Congressman. Delegate.
He was a
former delegate.
House of
Sorry,
Delegate.
not congressman. Yes, the former
After
House of
the
Delegates.
2020 election.
Yes, and how long did you serve in that position?
Not very long.
I was going to say
there a few
that was
days.
short-lived.
It was.
And now
days.
we're running for Congress, right?
That we are. Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we're going to talk about a lot on this show. You said it was an action-packed show.
Right. We have to talk about the latest happenings with VOAD, volunteer organizations active in disaster. They get a lot of state and federal funds.
And Derrick, you know what? If you don't know a lot about West Virginia VOAD, you should listen to the podcast.
Oh, I'm going
We've
to,
done
actually.
a few podcasts on that issue. WCHS and WOWK have done a lot of reporting on that.
But we had to break the story.
Yeah, it's we've had some, what would you say, like we have some unfavorable experiences or opinions about some nonprofits. And when you start digging, you realize why.
When you get into the non-90s and some of these things.
Yes. And
at all the
so,
numbers.
in a long story short, West Virginia VOAD is a organization that so many West Virginians have relied on to help restore their lives after flooding. Millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Some of the employees and the director kind of helped themselves a little bit.
Yeah, and so much so that during one of the interim meetings, the executive director of VOAD had to go before the judiciary or the committee on flooding, and was asked some very difficult questions.
Was grilled by
Senator Tarr,
Senate Finance Chair.
Yes,
Eric Tarr.
who at the end of that meeting then referred West Virginia VOAD for investigation by 3 legislative bodies.
So we'll get into the.
And it's
latest
interesting because
that.
today, and I'm talking because this just had me riled up, but FEMA today, Joe Biden, FEMA declared that West Virginia is a national or a disaster for the floods back in August
of last year. Why did it take so long?
I don't know, but now that opens the door to more millions of dollars that VOAD can apply for grants through the emergency department. What is that? Emergency management department, I think, or
Federal
I don't remember.
emergency.
Well,
Oh, you
state
mean
and
statewide.
county. Which kind of begs the question, like if they're going to apply for these grants through the emergency management division, and then emergency management goes and asks the county and asks, it's just
It's all about shuffling funds,
telling
and they
you.
don't get to where they're supposed to be.
So anyway, it's a fascinating, sad story.
So we have Derrick Evans, who is from Wayne County, was elected as a member of the House of Delegates. Was telling me his story, how he got involved with politics back in 2019, and was working on a bill to. This was before the lifting of Roe v. Wade by the Supreme Court. Involved with some bills at the legislature to make abortion a little bit more restricted. So that's how he got involved. He got involved in running for office in his district in Wayne County, which I think some fairly prominent former officials have come from there. Rick Thompson, I think, who was majority leader.
He was Speaker of the House at one
Speaker of
point.
the House
Yeah.
also. I remember him as majority leader, but I've been watching the House. I've been watching the legislature for over 45 years. So these names kind of blur together. Except for the latest people. So you were involved.
You won your
election.
seat, right? You won your seat.
And then you went, before inauguration, you went to the Capitol during the January 6th. Kind of catch us up. How did you find out about what was going on previously to January 6th so that you could be in position to be there?
Yeah, well, I just saw things floating around on the internet, like a lot of other people did. Come to the Capitol and peacefully and patriotically protest what I still believe to be a stolen election. And so I think it's important for us to remember that our rights do not come from the government. We have natural, God-given rights. And the Constitution was really written for one reason. It was written to prevent the government from infringing on our natural, God-given rights. And so when I was there that day, I was exercising not only my constitutionally protected rights, but my natural, God-given rights of free speech. And
so did you hear the president's speech while you were up
actually,
there?
I didn't. So
I was going to say it'd be kind of hard to hear it, while you're out there outside working.
Well, I rode a bus there with I think there was like 3 buses or something like that came from the Huntington area, and I was on one of those buses. And when we got there, someone that I rode the bus with said, I just happened to get off the bus with this person at this time, and they said, I've got some friends who are already at the Capitol. Let's walk down that way. And I said, okay. I didn't realize how long this walk really was until we got down there and we were freezing and everything. And I was like, I'm not walking all the way back to listen to President Trump speak. I mean, I've listened to him multiple times. Got a long way home. I'll listen to his speech on the way home, and that's kind of how I justified it. So I just stayed on the east side of the building that day. Now, it's important for everybody to remember that when it comes to January 6th, everything, 90% of the footage you've seen surrounding January 6th was all on the west side of the building, and primarily in the west tunnel entrance area. And so for me, I was on the east side of the building. And so I never saw any violence or destruction that day. Didn't know any of that took place. Was never accused of those things. Never even accused of seeing it because I didn't know until I got back into cell phone service like pretty much everyone else. And so everything I did that day, I live streamed it because I was there so early before the crowd got there. So I was already live streaming. And as other people showed up, they couldn't get cell phone service. But I guess I was kind of grandfathered in, if you will. I don't know how that works, but and so I live streamed the whole thing, which was one of the dumbest things I've ever done and one of the smartest things I've ever done at the same time.
Right.
Because so many people saw it and I have the footage and people can see, I walked through an open set of doors. I thanked a police officer for his service. The police officer seen on video gave me a friendly fist bump inviting me into the building. I've
watched it.
Yeah, I spent less than 10 minutes inside the public rotunda area telling people not to be destructive, all these things, walked out. And long story short, I was the only elected Republican that they could get their hands on. And so they came to my house, ripped me from my family, and threw me in prison and held me hostage as a January 6th political prisoner.
And what jail were you in?
So I was considered, when I went to prison, they said that I was too high profile to go to prison locally. It was be a safety breach for the prison is what they said, a safety concern. And they did myself this way and a few others. So they sent me to prison in Milan, Michigan, which is over 6 hours away. And if you go to this prison on the Wikipedia page, FCI Milan, Michigan, they have a list of notable inmates. And in this list of notable inmates, there are multiple Al-Qaeda members. There's the Christmas bomber who put the bombs in his shoes back in the early 2000s, the alleged leader of the Sonoma cartel, multiple mass murderers, and then you see me, Derrick Evans, for attacking the Capitol. And so it's comical that they'd even put me in the same category as known Al-Qaeda members, but that's how our government has treated myself and not just January 6th political prisoners. So many conservatives across the country right now are under attack and don't even realize it.
How long were you in there?
So I had an 18-month legal battle, and that was just a long process. It was very grueling emotionally, mentally, physically, financially. I ended up doing 3 months in federal prison, and I did 8 days of that in solitary confinement because I refused the COVID vaccine when I got there.
God bless you.
Goodness.
So they threw me in the hole.
So how did you get out? I mean, there are still political prisoners being held.
They're still arresting people every single day right now. They just arrested people this week. They're still arresting people.
Did anybody in the Republican Party come to your aid or offer assistance?
That's funny. No. We got a bunch of spineless jellyback rhinos. No. They all love to talk a big game. They love to take photo ops. They love to send out fundraising emails and let's sign a petition so they can collect your data. But when it comes time to do something, they don't have the courage to do it. I mean, think about this. They want to use, so many of them went in on January 6th and said, we're not going to certify the election. And then people walk into the Capitol that day. And now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we have to certify. I'm sorry, but that's a terrible excuse. If it was the correct thing to not certify at 8 a.m. that morning, it was the correct thing not to certify at 11 p.m. that same night, regardless of what happened in between. And they wanted to use that as an excuse to just turn around and certify the stolen election.
Do you think that equivocation caused some of the problems on January 6th?
I think that's very possible, and I think that we're finding more information and more evidence now, more proof of federal agents and provocateurs within the crowd, and the government was involved in this. And we know that President Trump requested the National Guard, and I can tell you, I was there when the National Guard finally showed up, and I can just tell you.
How long did it take for them to get there?
Well, I was inside, and you got to remember, the door that I went through was one of the last doors to open. Like they'd already been people inside when I went in there. And so I was inside, like I said, roughly 10 minutes. I got an emergency alert on my phone, and and it said, DC's going into lockdown. National Guard's been called in. Curfew's at 6 p.m. I'm so dumb that in that moment I was like, I better get out of here. I don't want to be out after curfew. I don't want to break the law. Little did I know that'd be the least of my worries. But everybody saw that, and when we received that message, some of the people didn't have it, so we showed them because they were like, "What was that?" And people started leaving the building on their own just from that message. And so I've thought so many times, like, they could have sent that message out much earlier in the day. They could have had some simple signs posted somewhere. And when the National Guard showed up, I can tell you right now, had they been there earlier in the day, like, there's no way January 6th would have happened. Like, people were not there to cause issues. We were there. If that police officer at any point would have told me, or most of the people I walked in there with, you're not allowed to be in here, I'd have turned around right then and walked right back out.
Right, but they were welcoming.
I mean, I remember that day, and I watched the news coverage of it, and I just remember being like so blown away by the number of people that were there, and just wishing. Literally, I wished that I could have been there. I had to work. I couldn't go.
It's the most patriotic day of my life.
It really I felt it that day. And just like, I wish I could be there to stand with you all.
Well, think about this. This is what I've said in a recent interview. There were people who came from Alaska and California, all over the country. Now, why? It's very unfortunate that we had elected representatives. We elected them to represent us, and that everyday American citizens felt the need to take off work, spend money, and travel across the country to go out there and make our voices heard, because the people we elected to represent us were not willing to be our voice for us. We should have never even had to have been there.
Yeah.
They should have been leading the charge.
Well,
for
and I
this.
remember seeing a lady on Facebook who, her son played football with Ryan at UNC, and lovely, lovely woman. And I would have never pegged her for an activist or whatever. And she, very soft-spoken, and she was there. I mean, she took off. She went with a bunch of other friends and family.
It appears that
from Georgia.
90% of the people that were there were there for innocent reasons.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Weren't there for.
Would you say that's an accurate statistic? Would you say 90%?
I would say more than 90.
Yeah.
I would say well over 90%. I mean, when you really break it down and you talk about 1 million plus people that were there, I mean, even the people that they've arrested, I mean, we're only at like 1,500, I think, arrests, getting close to that. So, I mean, and then you got to remember, out of the 1,500 arrests, like, I would say 90-something% of them were no violence or destruction.
So was there anybody
you're talking about 25 people maybe, or out of that 1 million that have been arrested and charged for some sort of violence or destruction.
Right.
What percentage of those do you think were part of the government, though, that were provocateurs?
That is why I think they don't want to release the 44,000 hours of footage, and why we're pushing for that right now to get that footage released.
Did you see shady things?
I didn't, because there was, like, my side of the building was just totally different. But
you were kind of like the normal people were on your side.
But I've obviously done a lot of research on it since then, because it's been a big part of my life, and I've met a lot of people along the way. And I know that Congressman Clay Higgins recently came out and said that they believe that there were hundreds.
I was going to say
of
that's what
federal
I'm
agents in the crowd that day who were. Just kind of provoking the crowd in some aspect or another.
So, January 6th is over. Everybody disperses. You go home. You get arrested.
Well, so January 7th was a crazy day. The day following. So I live in Wayne County, and everybody around here knows how it's a small rural area.
Right.
When I get home, you got to remember, by the night of the 6th, because I live streamed this.
Right.
On the night of the 6th, by then I'm already on Jimmy Kimmel and all these Stephen Colbert, and my face is everywhere.
What
I'm
were
like
you
the
thinking?
original face of January. I was.
Did you see that footage, that coverage?
Yeah, and at first, believe it or not, I was so naive. I thought that the government might have some questions, because I saw the footage of the violence and destruction, and I thought they might think I was with that crowd and I participated in that. But as soon as they realized that I was on the other side of the building and never saw any of this, I was so naive, I thought he was going to go away. But I had a local attorney who reached out and was like, hey, you should come down here. I think you're fine, but let's just be safe. You got a family and everything. I said, okay. So I go down there. But let me back up. The media, there was so much media at my house. It was like something out of a movie. And I'm not just talking about local or state or even national media. I mean, CNN, Fox, everybody's there, MSNBC, but BBC flew a crew in from Britain and knocked on my door in West Virginia. There were reporters from Ireland in Wayne County, West Virginia, wanting to speak with me. So anyways, we go down, I speak to this attorney and sign everything, and he reaches out to the FBI and says, hey, I'm representing this guy. He's an elected official. He's a great guy. Like, his face is all over national TV. If you guys have any questions, let us know. He'd be more than happy to come down. Like, it's not nothing like that. They said, okay. So because my fear was I was trying to protect my family, I didn't want my door knocked down
Absolutely.
at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Well, the next day on January 8th, my wife, I've got 4 kids now. My oldest was 5 years old at the time of my arrest. My wife was 9 months pregnant with her 4th child, and she left to go to her final doctor's appointment. And the feds told me they had watched my home. They knew that she left. They knew I was home alone with my children when they decided to show up with about 15 agents and raid my home on January 8th. And
did they
just
search your house?
Traumatized my family. The hardest moment of that whole, I guess, initial ordeal, because when I saw him coming up the driveway, I remember I quickly grabbed a tablet, took my kids to the back bedroom and said, here, play on this tablet while Daddy talks to his friends. I was trying to protect them not only physically but emotionally. I was in shock, really. Mm-hmm. And the hardest moment throughout that whole ordeal, though, those first few days probably was, I remember I was cuffed in the back of the SUV.
What were the charges?
It was originally 2 misdemeanors that they didn't even know what they were doing at the time. They were just arresting people. Mm-hmm. And so, but I was cuffed in the back of the cruiser. Oh yeah, they did all this for 2 misdemeanors, trespassing charges. And
but you were welcomed in by a cop.
Correct. And I remember being cuffed in the back of the cruiser, and I got a big window in my living room, and I see my little girls standing in the window crying, wanting to know where I'm at and what's going on, and waiting for my grandparents to get there because the neighbors are staying with my kids. My wife's 30 minutes away at the doctor. Like, it was just absolutely, it was terrible. It was the worst feeling ever as a father, knowing that, because you don't know when you're coming home. Right. You don't know any of these things.
Jeez. Right. Yeah, that's terrible. And so how did you get out?
Time served. So because I was arrested so early on, you know, and that's the thing. That's why you're starting to see the narrative shift around January 6th, partly. That first year or so, it was just insurrection,
right,
domestic terrorists.
Right.
And part of that was because none of us were allowed to speak, because from a legal standpoint, like, we knew better than to speak to the
your
media.
Story was not able to get out
there. And so, it was
Gotcha.
only one side of that. But now you've had, myself, Brandon Strockett, Dr. Simone Gold, Jacob Chansley, the shaman. A lot of us have gotten out, and we've been able to share our side of the story, and then it's opened people's eyes, and they're like, wait a second. And so really within the last years, when people have just finally got to start hearing the other side of this narrative.
Yeah. I have noticed that. I really didn't put 2 and 2 together.
When you resigned from your position, were you in jail?
I was handcuffed. Yeah, and basically,
did you resign, or did they?
No, I did, and there's a couple reasons why I did. So, number one, I was told, and I don't know if it's true or not. I still haven't had time to research it, actually, but I was told that if they voted me out, I would never be able to run for that position again. Like, it's kind of like being impeached, like, you'd never do it again. I don't know if that's true or not. But I was like, I'm fairly young, and I believe I can overcome this. I think that they're being cowards, and when I say they, I'm talking about the House of Delegate members in West Virginia here. Mm-hmm. Most of them are cowards, and I will publicly say that until the day that I die, because a lot of them wanted to be my friend. A lot of them wanted to leverage my social media presence. I had the largest social media presence in West Virginia at this when I was running during that time, and they all wanted to leverage that and wanted to be my friend. And then when things got tough, they all caved based on people outside of our state. It was liberals from California who's calling them, and they could not handle the pressure, and that's fine. I don't have any personal feelings towards them, but politically, I'm not going to help any of those people ever again. So.
And do you think they you kind of got christened by fire? You said you were kind of naive. You were thinking, because I feel like sometimes I'm naive. Like, she'll tell me stuff, and I'll be like, what? You kind of have to walk through it, and you get your ass kicked a couple times before you figure it out. Do you feel like some of them really didn't have a grasp on what was going on?
I think if some of them knew now knew then what they know now, they would probably have a different take on it. And don't get me wrong, there were a couple of them, and I don't even want to say the good ones because I don't want to get them in any trouble, but there were definitely a handful who were fighting really hard trying to get the votes to keep me in the House. I mean, I definitely have some strong allies here for sure, and I'll tell you guys who they are off air. I have no problem doing that. I just don't want to. It's up to them if they want to do it. I don't want to throw them under the bus.
I have to say that was because I was just so rooting for you, and then when I heard that you resigned, I was just like the wind went out of my sails.
Well, we were so close on the votes, and I still don't know what would have happened. I really don't. But when there was 2 things. Number one, they came and, like I said that if they vote me out, I was not able to run again, and I was like, okay, that would suck. And like I said, and you got to remember at this point, I've got the whole weight of the government on me and everything. And then the second thing was they presented to my attorney and I don't care to say who this was through Dr. Rohrbach, who's a delegate from Cabell County. He was basically their little gopher who went and did everything that they asked him to do, and he's a little coward. And he gave my attorney 2 different press releases, and one of them was me resigning, and one of them was them kicking me out. And my attorney was like, "This one would help you at sentencing or in court, and this one is going to hurt you, and you've got a young family, and you need to. I don't think this is worth the risk to do this." Basically, yeah.
I think we probably ought to go ahead and take a break.
Yeah, this is fascinating, and I would love to continue this conversation.
Get more and more wrapped up into this, and then forget to take the break. So let's go ahead and do that.
Yeah, because I want to hear what you're up to now.
Yeah, cool. Let's get to where you're going from now on.
Yeah,
and you'll be running for office. So let's take the break, and we'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
The Scoop Squad Truth Pod would like to thank our sponsors. Those include Chris Walters at Integrity Insurance, featuring auto, home, life, business, workers' compensation, and pet insurance. Pet insurance, you say? That's health insurance for your dogs or cats that covers special foods, illnesses, surgeries, and medication. They're on 16 Capitol Street in Charleston at 346-9181, or reach them at www.iigwv.com. Also by Jody's Mobile Services, offering steam cleaning, pressure washing, fleet washing, and auto detailing. We come to you. They're at 304-437-3164. And also by Eggplant on Bridge Road. Anything but ordinary. Go to eggplantshop.com. Also by T-Graphics on the west side, 312 Buchanan Street, 345-4816. Go to tgraphics.com for screen printing and embroidery since 1984. Again at 345-4816.
And we're back. You're back with the Scoop Squad Truth Pod, and we are here with the Suck and Scoop. We're here with Derrick Evans, a former House of Delegate member who was arrested after January 6th, spent some time in prison, got out. Now, were you ever charged with what are your charges? Were you charged with a felony?
I eventually was. So really quick, I'll run this down as quick as possible. Yeah. I was originally charged with 2 misdemeanors.
Yeah.
Then they came back a couple months later and added 2 more misdemeanors because they didn't even know what they're doing. Typically, they will investigate a crime, find the charges, and then arrest people. But they were like, this is an elected Republican. We have to arrest him. And they figured it out later. So then they had 4 misdemeanors. Then they offered me a verbal plea deal and said, choose your misdemeanor. We'll drop all the other charges. Now, I have to stop for a second here. I'm still on probation. And I will say that what I'm getting ready to say is not necessarily specifically my situation, but in general with other January 6ers as well. I have to legally throw that in there. What we have found is they would offer plea deals, and there were really a couple of things that they wanted you to admit and agree to in that plea deal. And one of those was blaming President Trump for your actions on that day. And the people who would not agree to that did not get plea deals early on. Okay, so that was one of the
and you did not agree to that.
To do that. So I said, send me the agreement. I want to see it in writing. And we'll just say that they withdrew the plea offer. We could not come to an agreement on the plea offer that they originally offered. And in my opinion, my punishment for that was then they hit me with a 1512 obstruction of official proceeding, which the Supreme Court is currently ruling on because it's really completely unconstitutional what they did. But it's a 20-year felony. So in one phone call, I go from I have a misdemeanor plea offer that I could probably just get out of and maybe get probation.
Nobody been sentenced at this time. Trump, right.
Yep. And nobody been sentenced at this time, so we're thinking maybe probation, very little time, if any. And to now I'm facing 24 years in prison. And I'll never forget that phone call. I went to the bathroom. My wife and my kids are in the living room playing. I went to the bathroom. I turned on the fan so nobody could hear me. I locked the door and I just started crying.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not even going to be home in time to walk my little girls down the aisle and give them away. I'm going to miss out on their entire life. And that's what I thought was going to happen. So it was terrifying.
So
but
what
God
happened?
love you for standing up to your beliefs and your morals and your convictions and not caving in.
Yeah, but so how did you finally get out?
Yeah, so at this point it had been months and months, and so I had time to kind of step back and process everything. And, it wasn't like just, having to decide within minutes like I did when I was first arrested.
Right.
And so then the next plea offer was, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years in prison. And at this point, because early on, I didn't understand federal sentencing guidelines. I didn't understand any of this stuff. Nobody explained any of this to you, So when I heard 24 years, I'm thinking 24 years. Well, when they offered the next plea offer, like 4 or 5 years, I was like, if I go to trial and lose, I'm probably facing 5 years. And so I told him, I was like, you want years of my life, you're going to come get it. Like, I'm not giving you years of my life away. Like, I've already given you enough. I've already resigned from my seat. I've already, done all this stuff. You guys are already draining us financially. And at this point, to be honest with you, I was at the point of, I was over the initial shock, and now I'm like pissed that this is even happening, to be honest, at this point.
Yeah.
And so we were at a stalemate for a while, and then they came in the next January, after multiple times of trying to get me to take the other plea deal of like 4 years in prison, and said, this is your final plea offer. It's going to be civil disorder, 0 to 6 months is what you'll be facing in prison. Take it or leave it.
And probably time served.
And so I went to my wife and told her about it, and she's a rock star. She's amazing. And she was like, look, I'll do whatever you want to do, but I think that we need to take this deal and live to fight another day. And the reason why is at this point we realize, you got to remember, at this point we realize we're not going to move the trials out of D.C.
Right.
There's no getting a fair trial in D.C. The jury pool's tainted. The judges are corrupt. And so it becomes that you finally face the reality of there's no winning. It's how do you lose the least amount? And so that's what we decided to do, is to take that and serve, and end up getting sentenced to 3 months in prison. And I said, it was not necessarily fun, but
You got credit for time served, I guess.
Did you? Yeah, I was gonna say.
I got some credit there for the little bit of the time that I'd served up to that point. And,
So kind of fast forward a little bit. Now we go to 24, or coming up into 2024, and you decided to run for Congress in the first district in West Virginia. What made you decide to do that?
The weaponization of government right now in our country. I think that people somewhat understand what's going on, but I don't think that people truly are fully grasping just how serious this issue is. Congressman Jim Jordan just put out a tweet 2 weeks ago, I think, that said, anyone who purchased a Bible with your credit card or debit card, the government has put you on a list. And so if you purchased a Bible for whatever reason, you're on a list. Parents who speak out at school board meetings are being put on a list. Pro-life activists.
Gardeners.
If
you garden at home, I can't tell you how many ways sideways I'm a terrorist.
Yep.
Like, seriously.
And so I want to take my personal experience and everything I went through, and there's no one in Congress who's ever went through what I've went through. They don't fully, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so I want to use that experience, and be honest with you, this is one of the reddest districts in the entire country, southern half of West Virginia, and we have a very moderate, to say the least, representative in that district right now.
Who is that representative?
Congresswoman Carol Miller.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's voted to send our money to Ukraine. She's voted to force our military members to receive the COVID vaccine. She votes for all the CRs. She voted against the impeachment of Mayorkas. I mean, you just name it. And this is a district.
She voted for the impeachment of
against it.
Okay.
Then she voted for it, so now she can say both.
She's done it.
So she's done both. It depends on which way the wind blows that day.
Who she's talking to, maybe.
Yeah, and
so it's like, not like she has principles. It's just she's doing what she's told, kind of.
Exactly. And even either way, I tell people, we deserve a Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene or someone like that, because once again, this is one of the reddest districts in the country. We deserve someone who's going to stand on the national stage and beat the drum of freedom, not only for West Virginia, but for every single God-fearing conservative across the country.
How long has she had this seat?
She's been here since 2018.
I mean, that's a long time.
She was in the legislature
for years.
Several years.
I just feel like at some point, times change clearly, but at some point you need a fresh set of eyes, and a fresh perspective.
Well, she's a nice lady. I mean, she is. But this is not a time for weak politicians. We're in a battle for the future of this country right now, and I don't know if people have accepted that, but we're in a battle.
So who do you have on your side? Who do you have behind you? Who's helping fund you?
Yeah. Oh man, we are so blessed, man. When I first decided to run, I was kind of doing it partly to also prove a point to the federal government, like, you did not win, you did not make me quit. Like I set out for a few minutes there, but I'm back in the game at this point, and that was part of it. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it's just amazing how God orchestrates things. So I've now got over 5,000 or getting close to 5,000 donors all across the country. We've raised over $300,000 to just blue collar Americans, not backed by big pharma or the military industrial complex. And we're endorsed by General Flynn, Mike Lindell, Veterans for Trump, Oil and Gas Workers Association. So we got a lot of support getting behind us right now. And I think that the people in Southern West Virginia are excited to have a fresh voice on the ballot.
Is there going to be? I was going to say, is there going to be an issue being on the ballot since
Nope.
you were okay?
So
excellent.
the same group that's going after President Trump, CREW, CREW. When I first announced on January 6th, I thought that was a great day to do it.
Awesome.
They put out a statement and said that I was ineligible to run, based on the 14th Amendment insurrection. And the attorney for the West Virginia Secretary of State's office put out a statement and said this guy was never charged, let alone convicted of insurrection, so he's eligible to run. And so, and I think that the reason they haven't come after me anymore is they know that in West Virginia they would never find a jury who would agree to something so stupid as to say that, and then it would split the courts and make it harder for them to continue attacking President Trump in like Colorado and these blue states where they're going after him.
So, are you getting any support from Trump or any other politicians like Marjorie Taylor Greene?
I've had some really good meetings with a lot of people in the Freedom Caucus. I've met with President Trump a couple of times. He is absolutely amazing. He hasn't obviously made a decision as to who he's going to endorse yet. Obviously, I'm hoping to get that. But I've spoken at multiple events. He shares quite a few of my things on True Social, which is pretty cool.
That's very cool.
When he was, I was at Bedminster a few days before his Georgia mugshot came out, and when that came out, our team put out a picture of my mugshot beside of President Trump's mugshot, and he retruthed that. He shared that on True Social, which is pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mugshots.
Yeah. Never in my wildest dreams thought I would ever have one. And then when I was taking that, I never in my wildest dreams thought President Trump would have one. And then I never would have guessed it. He would have shared our mugshots.
But things like that is what needs to wake up people and let them know we are in a fight for our country. Yeah. I mean, we're in a fight for humanity. I mean, if you want to broaden it, and in West Virginia, we need to also look at who we want to represent us as our governor, who wants to lead us in this fight.
Because I think there's been a shift in West Virginia.
There has been, and people are stepping up.
People are waking up.
They're done with it.
And the status quo representing us in D.C., it doesn't match.
I think it all trickles down too. I mean, you can even go down to a school board level, to a commission, to a city council level.
Absolutely.
People are over it.
Yeah.
And one thing that concerns me, and I did want to ask your opinion. I know you talked a little bit about Carol Miller, but her son's running for governor, and then we have Shelley Moore Capito, who again I believe is a rhino. I believe every time you see her, she's pictured next to Mitch McConnell. She hangs out with the boys, votes how she's supposed to vote, and yet her son's running for governor. Like, what is it with this legacy media? I mean, Shelley's dad was
not legacy media,
legacy government. I'm sorry.
Yeah, familial politics.
Yeah,
it is a little irritating.
Well, we've got too many politicians in politics. That's what got us in this mess to begin with. We need more patriots, and what I mean by that is just everyday Americans who are, to your point, frustrated and
I'm going to interrupt
sick of everything right now.
Bingo.
Get involved. That's what we need.
Ordinary, regular Americans. And the problem is that ordinary, regular Americans don't have the financial backing that these, career politicians and families have. And it's just
because they're protecting themselves.
Therefore, they do not represent. They can't represent us because they're not everyday.
Well, when you're in D.C. or when you're in the federal politics, like, I'm sorry, but you're so insulated from the realities of the world. Like, they don't know what it really means and how it affects people when the cost of milk, bread, and eggs.
Well, do they even live here full time? You know what I mean? It's like,
I know.
And they're all attorneys too. They're word salad. They twist everything around. It's ridiculous. And you said something, your God-given rights, and it reminds me. I've been reading this book called The Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrates. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
Oh, you should totally read it. It's like 100 pages, and it really talks about God's law as the first law, and God delegated to have people watch over us and keep evil from us, and they're actually perpetuating the evil. But it's just, you're right. We need everyday citizens, people that farm, people that
long,
work blue collar.
When you're in there for 20 plus years, I mean, come on. I
I
just
support
don't.
term limits 100%.
Yes.
We need fresh ideas.
Are
Yeah.
you getting
I do
any press interviews with like either mainstream press or even?
Well, you said
people-
local press was ignoring you.
Yeah,
right?
well, that's what's funny. So I get a
Okay.
ton of national media coverage. I'm on
Okay.
like Newsmax and OAN and CNN even. I mean, Real America's Voice and all these great different media outlets nationally. But the local media, for whatever reason, doesn't. And maybe they'll pick up as it.
I was going to say, do you have a
theory?
theory on that?
I don't know what it is, to be honest with you. I think that they.
Are you sending out press releases?
Oh yeah, we send them
Help 'em
out.
out?
Absolutely.
Get them kick-started,
Yeah, we
See-
try to do that. They've covered a couple of things, and I think it backfired. They were trying to call basically me an insurrectionist, and I think that they got a lot of comments from the people who were like, "This guy's awesome. This is what we need representing us right now." And so I think that part of their strategy was just like, that's
Not give him any
Yeah,
press.
let's just not give him any press right now.
And I almost think that it's kind of amateur hour. The big media is filtering down to the smaller media, and they're not used to playing these games.
Correct.
They don't have their hands on it. They're doing what they're told, but they don't really understand it, grasp it, maybe even buy into it. So I don't think they know how to be around you, to be honest.
I think that's part of it as well because I'm definitely not shy to talk about whatever is that comes out, but the media, what they try to do is they try to back you into a corner basically and they scare you into submitting to whatever it is or at least giving some ground on those issues. And that's one of the beauties about me, and that's what I tell people in Southern West Virginia in terms of electing me. Like, there's nothing the government can do to me that they haven't already done. There's nothing the media can say about me that they haven't
Listen, you've
already
got
said.
nothing
I
to
have
lose.
no
You're a
fear.
dangerous person.
Yeah, there's
Are
nothing they
you-
could say to me that's going to
Really?
bother me at this point. I'm
Are
numb
you
to
getting
it.
any advice about media? I mean, do you have like a press advisor or something?
Yeah, I got a whole team right now. Like I said, when I first started, I was just wide-eyed and was like, I'm not going to take it.
So how did you get this team? How did you get this following? Because I know it's hard my daughter's running for Kanawha County prosecutor here in Kanawha County. I ran for city council and lost, but it was hard to build that support network and some because you need help.
You do.
So how'd you do
I
it?
did a couple of interviews. Really, Teddy Daniels was a big part of this. He ran for lieutenant governor, I believe, in Pennsylvania last cycle or the cycle before, and he's got a media show. And I was on his show, and he was like, "Man, you're awesome. This is amazing. Like, this is what we need. Like, who's helping you?" I was like, "Man, I'm just figuring it out right now." And he's like, and he ran for Congress a couple of times before that. And he's like, I got some people. I want to put you in touch with them and everything. And so he started making some introductions. And then from there, doing a couple media interviews and, kind of blew up on social media for a little bit. And that opened up some doors and started getting invited to events. I was at Mar-a-Lago, a couple months ago and met a lot of people there. And so just kind of been just networking, and it's all God. There's like no way I could have done any of this on my own.
Isn't that amazing?
Amen.
God is amazing. So you were at the Freedom Caucus last Wednesday at in D.C. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown on how that went?
It's DC's such a weird place. So number one, you can't really talk politics in the Capitol building. That's what's funny. So you have to walk out and like across the street, as what they say, So this is all like things that are new to me, if you will. I'm trying to navigate those waters and figure it out. And that's why it's important to have somebody who knows what they're doing, so you don't make a mistake even unintentionally. So it's been a lot. But I'll tell you, the whole time I was in DC, I kept thinking like, what am I doing? I'm crazy. Like, this place sucks. I want to go back to West Virginia, But somebody.
But you're going to change that. Just know you're going to change that.
I know.
You're going to watch a
part of
movie,
that.
Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And see.
Have you
how-
seen that, Derek?
No, but I feel like
You're going to have to watch
It's
it.
old. It's like 1939 with Jimmy Stewart.
Okay.
A young, naive person. I think he's a Boy Scout leader, and he gets appointed to the Senate by some politicos after somebody else either dies or is removed. I can't remember which one it is, but anyway, he kind of stands for his own principles, and has to go against the powers.
That sounds like Derek, except for the naive part.
Yeah. Well, I tell you,
I'm not going to give away the plot, but you need to watch it.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that's your story, but it kind of gives you an idea of how people think government works, and then you kind of see in the background what they're doing to him.
Yeah.
Well, I told somebody the other day, I said the political class is not really ready for someone like me in D.C., but the American people are going to be really excited about it. I'm not running to make friends. I'm not running to go there and sip tea in a country club and play patty cake politics. I'm not running to make a career out of this. I've got a young family. I just want to serve a term or two and come back home. And I know a lot of people say that, but I promise you, that's all I want to do. I don't want to live in the swamp. I'm running really for one reason. I mean, a lot of people make promises that they really can't keep. I mean, I've got ideas of things I want to push, but I can't force other people to vote those things into office. But the one thing I can promise, because it doesn't require the help of other Congress people, is I'm running to kick in the front door and expose the corruption in D.C., and I don't need any of their help to do that.
And I'm telling you, there's other states that are lining up to do the same thing. You will have partners there. And there were some people before their time. Was it Cawthorn? That was in one of the Carolinas.
Yep. I actually met him at Mar-a-Lago. He's awesome.
He just was a little ahead of his time, but there will be people up there for a time as this, Derrick.
Yep. Well, Mr. Evans goes to Washington.
There we go.
Your homework is to watch Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Hey, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you guys for having me.
It was a fascinating conversation, and we hope that you'll come back. And good luck to you on the campaign trail.
I appreciate you guys very much. I'll definitely come back at some point.
If you need any door knockers, let me know.
I definitely. We're going to hit Kanawha County really hard. It's going to be an area where we're targeting extremely hard here in Kanawha County.
And she prints. She's printing too.
Okay, cool.
I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
What?
Your invitations, you're printing. I always mention all your gifts, but she's
pro bono. You let me know. I'll help you out, whatever I can do.
She does engraving.
All right, that is it for the second scoop, and we're going to let Mr. Evans get out of here back to his family, and we were going to come back and talk some city politics and some West Virginia vote. So join us. We'll be right back.
The Scoop Squad Truth Pod would like to thank our sponsors. Those include Chris Walters at Integrity Insurance, featuring auto, home, life, business, workers' compensation, and pet insurance. Pet insurance, you say? That's health insurance for your dogs or cats that covers special foods, illnesses, surgeries, and medication. They're on 16 Capitol Street in Charleston at 346-9181, or reach them at www.iigwv.com. Also by Jody's Mobile Services, offering steam cleaning, pressure washing, fleet washing, and auto detailing. We come to you. They're at 304-437-3164. And also by Eggplant on Bridge Road. Anything but ordinary. Go to eggplantshop.com. Also by T-Graphics on the west side, 312 Buchanan Street, 345-4816. Go to tgraphics.com for screen printing and embroidery since 1984. Again at 345-4816.
And we are back with a third scoop of the Scoop Squad Truth Pod. That was an interesting conversation. That was very intriguing. It's interesting to hear firsthand what that day was like at the Capitol. And
you see it from a lot of different perspectives, but I don't know that he's been interviewed very much. And I'm not saying he was right or wrong to do what he did.
Well, I'll tell you, when I saw his live stream, I just wanted to hear a
story from his own mouth.
When I saw, because I think I saw his live stream that day.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this could be bad.
Well,
you know
it's
what I mean?
Nice to be able
But he said it right. Like it was a good thing. It was a bad thing.
Get his side of the story out.
Yeah.
Because all we hear mostly is the media chatter. And that is definitely one-sided and a narrative, in my opinion.
Yeah. That was just fascinating to hear. But he sounds super excited to run against Carol Miller.
He's got tons of energy.
He's got a lot. And you know what? I'm sorry. That's what we need.
Yeah.
We need some people who are pumped up and energetic and, wanting to go to work and wanting to change things.
And backed by a family that want to support that.
Yeah, you're right.
And because that's part of the battle too. Because you're not going to be with your family. I mean, he's small children. Like having someone that's willing and wanting to support this country and just be the one that raises the children for a couple of years.
And I'm sorry. I mean, being in making a career out of politics and becoming wealthy, being a politician is not the way it was meant to be.
Never. They were never even meant to have these as full-time jobs. These people have not only had these as full-time jobs, they're getting rich at it.
There's no way that
this is with your tax dollars.
There's no way that you could be in touch with your constituents, the working people of West Virginia. I'm just going to say it.
Well, speaking of the working people, a lot of us have given money to charity and to pay our taxes, and it ends up in sometimes there's a disaster or flood that happens, and the money gets shoveled to something like West Virginia VOAD, voluntary organizations active in disaster.
And I bet their alarm bells went off today when
we've been following that story since the beginning. I think we were the ones that really broke it wide open because a lot of other media were afraid to kind of tackle it. And it's its full focus. So after our coverage, and you went to the Senate Finance Committee hearings about their funding. Of course, you went to the Kanawha County Commission when the commission pulled their funding for VOAD.
Revoked their funding.
So now the state is looking at it in the Senate.
Kenny Bass's story. Brian Abraham was interviewed on that on the WCHS story, saying that they are not giving any more money to West Virginia VOAD, and they're going to have to find other funding sources. The county has said that. But then again,
what about What is it?
Good 360 has
Good 360 has supplied them with a lot of.
And they
material.
have completely severed their relationship with West Virginia VOAD. But today, as I mentioned earlier, FEMA declared that the last summer's flooding is now okay, let me read it. The county and state, as well as Good 360, have formally cut ties with West Virginia VOAD. The declaration from FEMA this morning, which is what I was trying to get to, federal officials announced Tuesday that last summer's flooding event, this is from WCHS TV, has qualified for a major disaster declaration. Okay. People are still, some of the aftermath of that flood is still visible in Kanawha County. Missing bridges, which is something that West Virginia VOAD does.
In this area, Winifred got hit really hard.
Property damage. And so today, President Biden announced the federal disaster assistance has been made available to the state of West Virginia. And in that action, it says affected residents may receive financial assistance through the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. Funding will be made available for temporary housing and repairs, loans to cover uninsured property losses, and other programs to help in recovery. So West Virginia VOAD has the opportunity to apply for those funds. Federal funds through the Emergency Management Division, I believe.
Well, let me go back to what Good 360. You mentioned Good 360. Yes. According to Channel 8 story by Kenny Bass, information quoting here gathered from Good 360's public tax documents show in 21 and 22 it donated $1.9 million worth of merchandise. That's traditionally what Good 360 does is get donations of merchandise, sometimes from box stores, and to distribute to charities like VOAD to give away to flood victims.
Yeah.
Now these are items that, according to Eric Tarr's interview or questioning of Jenny Ganaway, the director of West Virginia VOAD, that some of these items disappeared in the past, and I think that's probably what made Good 360 look at this, investigate, and quoting here. A quote from Good 360 that Kenny Bass shared. Good 360 has completed its ongoing investigation into the inappropriate distribution of donated products. As a result of that investigation, we have Good 360. We have decided to terminate our partnership with West Virginia VOAD, according to Monica Irvin, the organization's vice president of compliance and member services. Irwin had previously emailed that Good 360 policy explicitly prohibits our nonprofit partners from exchanging product donation for funds in any way. So some of that was going on too, in addition to some of the officers claiming some of those items for their personal use.
Yeah, because with this grant, in the past, VOAD has received like over millions of dollars to set up disaster recovery centers around the state. And that's what this grant is going to be specifically used for, is setting up the disaster recovery centers so that, case managers can vet these people, can get them in, can help them apply for this money. And so, it just kind of makes you think like, this is an opportunity for West Virginia VOAD to apply.
Are there other organizations that can apply for this?
I don't know, but it'll be
and
interesting.
Here's the other thing to me that just sounds so hinky with this whole thing. Like, this is a year later. Why wasn't FEMA boning up when it was actually disaster area and people needed the funding right at that moment in time? It's just awful convenient when VOAD starts skipping getting tripped up and getting in trouble that, bam.
New grants available.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah. I mean, it should have been done a long time ago when it first happened.
Well, it seems like it could be a way for
a back
VOAD
door
to stay afloat and a workaround to get some more money. I don't know. We just have to keep an eye on it.
They just need to be held accountable to show where every penny of any money they receive
I don't understand
goes.
why the board hasn't stepped up. The board of VOAD,
it's a national organization. It's not West Virginia only. West
Virginia West Virginia VOAD has a board.
Oh, absolutely.
And why they have not? I mean, this executive director has caused them, in my opinion, irreparable damage. I mean, state funding said we're not giving you any more money. County said we're not giving you any more money.
But we look at relationships between boards and their directors all the time. I mean, look at the school board and the
You know who they are hurting?
West Virginians.
Yeah,
absolutely.
With this.
Absolutely.
I don't understand it.
But if everyone's on the take,
right?
And I'm not saying they are, but it's a lot of shade.
It sure
everyone's on the take.
Way.
They're all like covering up.
Right.
Speaking of cover-ups, there was a cover-up. There's all kinds of cover-ups in the city. We've exposed some of them, but I wasn't really going to talk about a cover-up. I was going to talk about city council, and there is a meeting next week. The 5th, is that the 5th? I think.
On Monday?
On Monday. And there have been some social media posts circulating about untabling the resolution, the ceasefire resolution in the Middle East. And many people want to see that resolution untabled. And here's the thing.
Including some of the guests that were on this episode, this podcast a few weeks ago.
Yes, Morgan Fowler, Sue, and all the people that have shown up to the last several council meetings asking for this resolution to be passed. And my thing is like, any resolution really deserves a vote. I mean, I don't understand what the point of tabling that. Well, I know what the point.
If you table it, you don't have to take a vote. So there's not a public record of how you took a stand.
Right.
And the responses that I got from the few people that did respond to me were like, that's really not our business. Charleston doesn't have business doing that. We can't affect any change. Well, if it wasn't your business, why did you sign a letter in the first place? Right. So you can't have both sides of the story.
That's a very good point.
Get into the water there, you got to go.
Yeah, you put your big toe in, now you need to
you
jump.
Can't withdraw and say, oh, well, forget we ever said anything.
Right.
Well, you already signed the letter.
There were several of them.
That's not an argument.
That signed there were 20 that signed a letter. So you already did that.
Yeah, if you felt like you shouldn't have been a part of this and you shouldn't have been a part of this in the beginning.
Yeah.
Now you're a part of it. Do the right thing.
Yeah, do the right thing and vote to untable the resolution so that it can be voted on. Then
you live with consequences.
But
it may not hurt people in an election, but you're going to have some people that either way you have harmed yourself with the Muslim community.
With the Islamic, and it looks like there is a strong there's Islamists and there are Jewish the Jewish community. Many of them have come together on this issue.
The Muslim community and the Jewish community.
The Muslim community and the Jewish community. Well, Islamic, they're right?
When you say Islamists, that's a sect in the Middle East.
But aren't they? Isn't the Islamic Association?
Yeah, the Islamic Association. Yes.
Well, that's what I meant to say.
Yes. I knew that's what you meant, but
Okay, but I didn't say it.
you said
just
Islam.
to be clear.
I thought you said
Just
Islamist.
to be clear, yes, not
Yeah.
Islamists, but the members of the Islamic community and association here have partnered, and with the fellow Jewish community in this community, and they are all on this. Well, not all of them, but there's a large portion of each group that are on the same page.
Well, they're finding common ground, and that's what this is about.
Right.
We don't agree with everything. I'm sure I don't agree with everything that Sue and Morgan.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you find common ground, and if it's saving lives and not killing innocent people, I think that's a good common ground to occupy.
Yeah. But anyway, the emails and the texts that I sent out today were.
If you can go back to that episode with Max Fisher. Who worked.
Yeah.
With Faith and Freedom.
Yeah.
And worked to investigate everything that's going on.
Well, and took a solidarity trip to Israel.
Right, but he has an insight. having been born in Russia, as he calls himself, a blue-eyed Jew, the Nastasi Jewish community. His family came to America. He grew up here, but he has a heart for Israel, and went over after the events. I think he didn't get to go till November,
right?
But he got to see firsthand, what it's like for people there and in Gaza.
Yeah.
So I invite everybody to go back a few weeks.
What episode was that? Do you remember?
I can't remember the exact episode, but it was a couple of weeks ago. It was a special episode that we did recorded on a Monday, about two
we'll
weeks
look it
or
up
so
and
ago.
maybe we'll repost it.
We'll put it on the Facebook post when I post this episode. I'll tell you.
But I sent out my own emails, because I would like to see the resolution untabled. I would like to see a vote. I got some contentious replies.
Right.
I sent them to Elisa.
This fellow
that's crazy.
is very well educated.
Who
he
you talking
works
about?
in the Republican Party.
Who?
Episode
Max
86.
Oh, Max. Okay, episode 86. Thank you. Yes.
Okay. So he also taught guitar to Indy area.
And he also has the
he's
War
got kind of
Dogs
a wide
nonprofit. And we want to have the executive director of the War Dogs nonprofit on here. We are talking to her and hoping for late February. So
yeah, it's an organization that I wouldn't want to say, you don't necessarily have to say rescue, but they take in dogs who were formerly technically soldiers.
Right, yeah, soldiers.
They call them war dogs,
war
but
dogs.
they were soldiers, when they're retired, and they rehome them. And he's got at least a couple of them that he brought to the studio.
Well, okay, so that's going to have to do it because we are supposed to wrap up, says Ryan. But next week is the city council meeting, next Monday, 7 o'clock.
And next week, we also want to dive into, some of these repeat offenders that keep getting, like Harry Nguyen, who last week was accused of shooting a Charleston resident through the door. And I'm looking at his rap sheet. I mean, he's been arrested and let go by magistrates over the last several years.
Yeah.
And I found some others who've been arrested many times and had their cases dismissed by all different. I mean, not all just one magistrate, but several magistrates seem to be maybe they don't have all the information or not allowed to have all the information of their background, but they keep getting.
Well, you know what?
I mean, if you can find it on the internet, certainly they should be able to find it.
And you know what? I know someone who could talk about that with us.
Who would that be?
And her name is Morgan Switzer.
Well, we need to have her on.
Let's do it. Okay, thanks, Ron. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very
Elisa, thank you for tagging along.
Thanks for having me.
And we will be sure and let y'all know when the magic makeup remover claws are in. But for this week, that is going to do it for the Scoop Squad Truth Pod. And we will talk at you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charleston.
If you would like to tie your business with this popular podcast, you can contact me, Ron Hughes, to advertise at ron.hughes, ron.hughes, at wvradio.com, or you could call me at 304-342-8131. The Scoop Squad Truth Pod would like to thank our sponsors. Those include Chris Walters at Integrity Insurance, featuring auto, home, life, business, workers' compensation, and pet insurance. Pet insurance, you say? That's health insurance for your dogs or cats that covers special foods, illnesses, surgeries, and medication. They're on 16 Capitol Street in Charleston at 346-9181, or reach them at www.iigwv.com. Also by Jody's Mobile Services, offering steam cleaning, pressure washing, fleet washing, and auto detailing. We come to you. They're at 304-437-3164. And also by Eggplant on Bridge Road. Anything but ordinary. Go to eggplantshop.com. Also by T-Graphics on the west side, 312 Buchanan Street, 345-4816. Go to tgraphics.com for screen printing and embroidery since 1984. Again at 345-4816. Rebroadcast, retransmission, or transcription is not permissible without the expressed approval of Scoop Squad Truth Pod. Copyright 2024.